I found out my ex-wife tried to destroy my career with a lie that could have ruined my life forever. But what she didn't know is that I had a secret of my own. It was supposed to be a fresh start. After years of building my career, my family, and my life with Sarah, I thought I had everything I wanted. We had a beautiful home, 2 kids, and a career I was proud of. But everything changed one day when I got a call from my boss. "Jim, we need to talk. There's a serious issue with your job performance. We've received some troubling complaints." My heart sank. I'd never gotten such a call in my life. As a successful executive, I had worked hard to prove myself. I was always the first one in the office and the last one to leave. How could this be happening? I tried to stay calm, but the words kept spinning in my head. Complaints? What kind of complaints? It wasn't until I hung up that the truth hit me. It was Sarah. She had been furious after our divorce a few months ago, and I hadn't even realized how far she'd gone to make me pay. As I sat there trying to piece everything together, I remembered something she had said during our last argument. "You'll never succeed without me. I know how to destroy you." At the time, I thought it was just bitterness, words of someone hurt by the end of our marriage. But now, those words felt like a chilling prophecy. I quickly learned that Sarah had been spreading false rumors about me to my colleagues, telling them that I was incompetent and not fit for my job. The whispers started to reach the higher-ups, and now my career was on the line. A smear campaign that could ruin years of hard work, all because she couldn't stand the idea of me moving on. It wasn't just a divorce anymore. It was personal. She had crossed a line, and I was in danger of losing everything. My reputation, my career, my future, all hanging in the balance because of her lies. But what Sarah didn't know was that I wasn't the same man she had married. I had learned some hard lessons during our marriage, and even harder ones after our split. One thing was for sure, I wasn't going to let her destroy my life without a fight. I wasn't going to sit back and let her ruin me. I was going to take control of the situation, turn the tables, and show her just how much she underestimated me. She thought she could tear down my career with her lies, but she had no idea what I was capable of. The real battle was just beginning. The first few days after the phone call were a blur. I couldn't focus at work. My mind kept replaying the conversations I'd had with Sarah before the divorce, her cutting words echoing in my head. But now, it was no longer just about us. It was about my career. Everything I had worked for was slipping through my fingers, all because of a vengeful ex-wife who couldn't stand to see me succeed. I didn't tell anyone at work what was going on. I knew better than to show any weakness. I had to be calm, collected, and strategic. But I wasn't just going to wait and see what happened. I had to fight back. It took me a few days to gather the evidence. I started with Sarah's phone records. We had a joint phone plan, and I knew she hadn't bothered to cancel it. I was careful, playing it cool. My plan wasn't just to expose her lies, it was to make her regret ever trying to take me down. When I dug through her messages, I found something I didn't expect. There it was, proof of what she had done. She had been talking to my colleagues, feeding them false information about me, claiming I was untrustworthy, incompetent, and that I was hiding a personal issue that would eventually affect my work performance. But that wasn't all. What shocked me even more was the connection between Sarah and a few of the people I trusted most in my company. Sarah had been feeding my personal information to them, details about my struggles, our marriage, and everything I had been through. But that wasn't the real kicker. What she didn't know was that one of my closest friends at work, Mark, had been secretly gathering intel on her the entire time. Mark had known I was going through a rough patch, and when he found out Sarah was trying to sabotage me, he took matters into his own hands. For months, Mark had been secretly tracking Sarah's interactions with people at my company. He had uncovered emails, messages, and phone calls where she had been speaking ill of me behind my back. He had also discovered something much worse, a plot to replace me at the company with someone she had been in contact with, someone who was looking for an upper management position. This was bigger than I thought. Sarah wasn't just trying to ruin me out of spite, she had a plan to take over my life entirely. She had been playing both sides, trying to use me as a stepping stone to climb the corporate ladder by getting me out of the way. And the worst part? She thought she could get away with it. But now, I had the upper hand. Mark and I worked together to compile the evidence, building a case so airtight that there was no way she could deny it. I had everything I needed. Her lies, her betrayal, her secret communications with people I trusted. She had played me for a fool, but now I was the one pulling the strings. The moment of truth came sooner than I expected. I arranged a meeting with my boss, the one who had called me about the complaints. When I walked into that room, I wasn't the man who had been blindsided by betrayal. I wasn't the broken person Sarah thought I was. I was calm, collected, and ready to strike back. "Jim," my boss said, looking concerned, "we've reviewed the complaints about your performance. But there's something you should know. Some of the information doesn't add up. It looks like there's been some external influence." I stayed silent, letting him speak. I knew exactly what he was referring to. "I've reviewed some new information," he continued. "Some of these complaints were traced back to your ex-wife. And there's more. It appears she's been in contact with some of our staff about you. She's been spreading false rumors about you. But what we didn't know was the extent of it. She's been working behind the scenes to replace you." I remained calm, though my mind was racing. It was all coming together. I had exposed her for what she was, someone who would stop at nothing to destroy me and anyone who got in her way. "I have evidence," I said, pulling out a folder. "Emails, phone records, and witness testimonies. Everything. It's all here." My boss looked at the folder, then back at me, his face pale. "Jim, I had no idea this was happening. We'll take immediate action." As the meeting ended, I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Sarah had underestimated me. She thought she could break me, take my career, and replace me. But what she didn't know was that I had already taken the first step in securing my future and her destruction. The next few days felt like a blur of meetings and calls, but I wasn't focused on the chaos. I knew exactly what I needed to do, and I had a plan. Everything was about to change. My boss had promised to investigate the situation, but I wasn't going to sit back and wait. I needed to take control of the narrative before Sarah could do more damage. I decided it was time to confront Sarah, but I wasn't going to do it the way she expected. I wasn't going to beg or shout at her. I was going to use the one thing she didn't see coming: my knowledge of her deceit, my preparation, and my calm demeanor. I called her, the first time I'd done so since the divorce. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. She didn't hesitate. "About what?" she asked, clearly trying to play it cool. "About your plan to destroy my career. About your lies and the people you've been manipulating behind my back. About everything." There was silence on the other end of the line, followed by a soft laugh. "Jim, you're making a mistake. You have no idea what's really going on. You think you've got everything under control, but you're wrong. I'll make sure you regret this." "I don't think you understand," I replied calmly. "I already know everything. The emails, the phone calls, the lies you've spread. I know about the job offer you were trying to get for your new boyfriend, trying to get him into the company by sabotaging me. I have it all, Sarah. It's over." For a moment, I thought she might actually say something meaningful, but then she spat. "You think I'm scared of you? You can't touch me. I'll burn you to the ground before you even see it coming." "That's exactly what I'm talking about," I said, my voice unwavering. "You've spent all this time trying to destroy me, but you didn't think I'd have the strength to fight back. You underestimated me. And now you're about to find out just how wrong you were." With that, I hung up. My heart was pounding, not out of fear, but because I knew the real battle was about to begin. Sarah had tried to use her lies and manipulations to control the situation, but she never realized how far I'd gone to ensure I was prepared for this moment. The next step was clear. I had to meet with the higher-ups at the company. I called Mark, my ally, and arranged for him to meet me the following day. We had one final piece of evidence to hand over, something I knew would bury Sarah's reputation for good. The day of the big meeting arrived, and I walked into the conference room with a sense of calm confidence. My boss, along with a few other executives, sat at the table, looking serious. "Jim, we've gone through the evidence. It's disturbing, to say the least. But we need to hear your side of the story, my boss said, leaning forward. I took a deep breath and began pulling out a folder. This is everything. All of Sarah's communications, the lies she spread about me, and the fact that she's been trying to replace me at the company with someone else. But that's not all. We also found out that she was trying to orchestrate a fraud to get her new boyfriend into a management position by falsifying her employment history and fabricating a promotion offer for him. The room fell silent. The executives exchanged nervous glances. You're telling us she was planning to put someone else in your position? One of the executives asked, disbelief in his voice. Exactly, I reply, placing the final piece of evidence on the table, an email Sarah had sent to one of the HR directors with instructions on how to manipulate her boyfriend's resume and references. One of the executives stood up, his face pale. This is beyond what we expected. Jim, we owe you an apology. We had no idea. At that moment, I realized just how much Sarah had underestimated me. She had assumed that because she was angry and bitter after the divorce, I'd fold under the pressure. But I wasn't the same man I was when we were together. I had fought for this position, for my career, and I wasn't about to let her or anyone else take it from me. As the meeting concluded, I felt a sense of vindication. Sarah had not only lost her chance to ruin my career, but she had also lost the respect of the people she had manipulated. But this wasn't just about business. This was about something deeper, a realization that sometimes life puts us through hell, but we have the power to fight back and rise above it. I left the conference room knowing that I had won. I had faced down the woman who tried to destroy everything I worked for, and I had come out on top. In the days following the meeting, the air at work was thick with tension. The executives had promised to investigate the situation fully, but I knew it was only a matter of time before Sarah would face the consequences of her actions. However, the impact of the confrontation went beyond just the corporate world. Word had spread, and suddenly, I was the one people looked to for answers. It was strange. Just a week ago, I was the victim, the one whose career was being destroyed by lies and rumors. Now, I had become a symbol of resilience and strength. People started to reach out, congratulating me on taking control of my life, on standing up to the woman who had tried to ruin everything. But as satisfying as it was to see people rally behind me, I knew the real challenge was still ahead. The fallout from Sarah's actions wasn't just going to vanish. She had stirred up something bigger than she could have ever anticipated. And now, it was time for her to face the consequences. The next morning, I received a call from HR. Jim, we need to talk, my HR manager said, his voice somber. About Sarah? I asked, already knowing where this was going. Yes. We've reviewed everything, and we've decided to terminate her employment effective immediately. We've also filed a report with the police about the fraud she was trying to commit. I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. Sarah had gone too far. She didn't just try to ruin my life, she had risked her own career, her own future, by trying to manipulate the system. And now, she was paying the price. But as I hung up, a part of me felt empty. This was what I wanted, right? Justice, closure, and the opportunity to rebuild my life. But why did it still feel like something was missing? I spent the rest of the day thinking about the woman I had once loved, the woman who had been the mother of my children, the woman who had been by my side through thick and thin. It was hard to reconcile that person with the one who had tried to tear me down. I knew she had her faults, but did she really deserve to lose everything because of a moment of bitterness? That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. Was this the right thing to do? Was I justified in exposing everything? Or had I become the very thing I hated? Just as I was about to get up and start pacing the floor, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah. We need to talk. I'm sorry for everything. I never meant to destroy your career. I was angry, and I made a huge mistake. Please, let's talk face to face. I stared at the message for a long time. It was an apology, but it felt empty. She was sorry because she had been caught, not because she understood the pain she had caused. She was sorry because her plan had backfired. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't feel any empathy for her, it was more that I realized I didn't owe her anything anymore. She had made her choices, and now I had to focus on my own future. The next day, I made a decision. I contacted my lawyer and began the process of ensuring that Sarah had no further claim to any assets or business dealings related to me. She had done enough damage. It was time to move forward without looking back. That afternoon, I met with the CEO of my company. He thanked me for coming forward and assured me that the company was taking steps to prevent something like this from happening again. He also mentioned that the board of directors had been impressed with how I handled the situation, and they were offering me a promotion and move to a new role that would secure my position for years to come. The offer felt like a victory, but it wasn't just about the promotion. It was about reclaiming control of my life, my career, and my future. I wasn't defined by my past with Sarah anymore. I was defined by what I had learned from the experience and how I had risen above it. As I left the office that day, I felt a sense of closure. Sarah had tried to destroy me, but she didn't realize that she had made me stronger. What she didn't know was that the very thing she used to try to break me, her betrayal, had only fueled my determination to succeed. And now, I was on a path to a future that was completely mine, free from her shadow. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Sarah's termination from the company made headlines, and the gossip spread faster than I could keep up with. I knew she would try to spin the narrative in her favor, but her credibility had been shattered. Her attempts to manipulate people at work were no longer seen as isolated incidents, they were part of a much larger, darker pattern. I didn't have time to dwell on what Sarah had done. My career was back on track, my future was more secure than ever, and I had a new role within the company. The promotion I received wasn't just a career advancement, it was a message. It was proof that I had triumphed over the betrayal, and no matter how hard Sarah had tried, she hadn't broken me. But just when I thought I had finally escaped the shadow of my past with Sarah, another twist emerged. One afternoon, I was reviewing some important documents in my new office when I received an unexpected phone call. It was from Mark, the friend who had helped me gather evidence against Sarah. "Jim, I've been looking through some old files," Mark said, his voice tinged with worry. "I think there's something you should see." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "What is it?" "There's a financial transaction linked to Sarah and another individual. It's not just the fraud she was trying to orchestrate at work, there's something much bigger going on." I leaned forward, suddenly alert. "What do you mean?" "Someone in her circle has been trying to funnel money through your company, using your name without your knowledge. And it involves offshore accounts, Jim. This is way beyond anything we thought we were dealing with. I think Sarah was part of a much larger scheme." I was stunned. The last few months had been a blur of personal betrayal and corporate sabotage, and now it seemed like the situation was escalating to something far more dangerous. Mark sent me the files, and as I skimmed through them, my heart sank. There it was, a connection between Sarah and a network of individuals tied to international money laundering operations. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about criminal activity that could have dragged my company into a scandal if left unchecked. I quickly reached out to my lawyer and arranged a meeting with the CEO. I had to take immediate action to ensure that no one could tarnish the company's reputation and drag me into something bigger than myself. The CEO was shocked when I laid out the details. "This is more serious than I ever imagined, Jim, but I'm glad you brought it to our attention. We'll take care of it. We're starting an internal investigation, and we'll be working with the authorities." It felt like another round of redemption. Sarah had thought she was winning. She had thought she could destroy me, ruin my career, and move on with her life. But what she didn't know was that her final betrayal had sparked something I hadn't even anticipated, a chain of events that would uncover a much deeper conspiracy. A few days later, law enforcement stepped in. They conducted their investigation, and Sarah's involvement in the larger money laundering scheme was revealed to the public. The authorities froze her assets, and she was taken into custody for questioning. The truth about her actions was finally exposed to the world. She had tried to destroy me, but in the end, it was her own actions that led to her downfall. As I stood outside the courthouse, watching the media swarm around Sarah's case, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. Not just because I had won professionally, but but because I had finally let go of the anger and resentment that had once consumed me. Sarah had tried to break me, but in the process, she had only strengthened me. I had rebuilt my career, my life, and my future on my own terms. The journey hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. I had learned that sometimes the most painful betrayals can lead to the most powerful transformations, and in the end, it was the strength to move forward that truly defined me. As I walked away from the courthouse, I made a silent promise to myself that I would never allow anyone, not even my ex-wife, to have that kind of power over me again. My life was mine to control, and nothing, no matter how big the challenge, could take that away from me.